The third angel of spirituality. I have a great and undescribable joy, for we are discovering the benefit of spirituality. Previously in this apocalyptic vision, the angel of the Lord made it clear to me that a proportion of my members had missed the rapture because of low spirituality. Given the sound doctrine and prophetic teaching that I fed them with, I was in dismay, and these people could not believe that they have missed the rapture and they were left behind. They were saying, "This is not happening to us. Please Lord, let this be just a dream." They could not accept that they were left behind, and when I woke up from this end-time vision, I glorified the Lord, because this was just a vision. Nonetheless, it is thanks to this vision that we got this message about spirituality, and it is thanks to this angelic teaching about spirituality that we are already preparing ourselves for the return of the Lord Jesus, because all the secret about the preparation of the church for the rapture are being revealed to us. Brother in the Lord, this issue of the rapture is a big deal. Therefore let read for you the review of the previous point that we had covered about the revelation of the first and second angel of spirituality. Basically, the first angel of spirituality expect God children to make themselves sacred by consecrating and dedicating themselves and setting themselves apart, so that they will develop spiritual function that would become art. The second angel of spirituality expect God children to develop the strength that will enable them to bear the temptation, that so that they would become superior to the tempter. Temptation is suffering and the body must endure temptation. Now I will talk about the message of the third angel of spirituality. I know that the world is impatient. I am also impatient to dispensate the revelation. When the third angel began to speak, I remember many things. The angel of spirituality are waiting for God children to develop spiritual faculty, and it's all about availability. I will begin now the message of the angel of the Lord. I want to do a raw and literal reading of everything the angel said, and then we shall develop this reality that tell us in a panoramic way how to prepare ourselves for the rapture. When the third angel began to speak, he started in exclamation and interjection. He said, "O sons and daughters of men, this is a great day for us to express ourselves since millennium." Brother, I wonder how can angels say it is a great day for them to express themselves since millennium? Does it mean that it has been millennium that these angels has not spoken, and why is that so? We shall come back to that. The angel of the Lord said, "We have waited so much for this moment where our task is supposed to begin." When the angel spoke that way, I wonder what is that work? And has that work not yet started all these centuries? The angel of the Lord said, "We angels are servant created for service. However, the instrument of our service does not allow us to operate and serve." The word of the angels was so strong and my being is shaking. The angels said they were made in order to serve God, but the children of God who are their instrument of service do not allow them to operate. I came to understand that the service of angels to the Lord is narrowly bound to God children. They work with us and in us. This is their operation, and this is an issue of operation. The angel of the Lord said spirituality is when God children rise in dimension. People talk about dimension, but what is dimension? In the world they are thesis, philosophy, and they are general spirituality that talk about dimension. However, the angel of the Lord said, God children rise in dimension when their faculty move from human and ordinary usage to spiritual usage, for the purpose of the edification of the church. When your faculty is no longer for ordinary and human use, they are no longer yours, they become of spiritual usage. This is when human faculty become spiritual instruments serving for edification of the church, and that where your spirituality begin and you are in a new dimension. It is in this scenario that men's natural function becomes supernatural beyond ordinary nature, for the nature is dead through mortification. The human nature is also dead through charisma. Brother, I remember how the first angel defined the word charisma. According to the angel of the Lord, charisma is when God children are tempted, when they have desire and when they have need, but they are able to restrain themselves. It is when God children restrict themselves. Charisma is when God people are able to abstain themselves from things they used to do. The angel of the Lord said that charisma is a lifestyle of abstinence, restraint and separation, the practice of restraining oneself from indulging in something one was attached to. Typically alcohol, smoking or sex. Charisma is self-denial. Godchildren still have inclination and indulging, but it is when they refrain and deny themselves from indulging in the demand of the flesh that they become charismatic. You are charismatic when you overcome the demand and impulse of the flesh, as a result of consecration, devoutment and devotion. Abstinence was the first angel definition of charisma. The third angel said mortification means offering oneself in sacrifice, and mortification kill the nature. Likewise charisma also kill the nature, and that's where spirituality begin. As a result, Godchildren function and faculty benefit from this lifestyle. Many of Godchildren used to indulge themselves in smoking, drinking and sex. They had addiction before. However, when you come to Christ, deprivation and self-denial must prevail, and we deprive ourselves from the desire and inclination of the flesh. This simply means we suffer in the body. As a consequence, our function and faculty reach a new dimension. This happens when our bodies suffer in self-sacrifice, self-denial and abstinence. Brother, it is better to suffer in the flesh in order to get our function to reach a new dimension by leaving ordinary usage to spiritual usage. We got to choose between our desire and our function, which is a new dimension. We either get the body suffer through abstinence and consecration to reach a new dimension and become sacred, or we indulge ourselves in the addiction and desire of the flesh and we remain carnal and ordinary. The Lord wants our function to become spiritual for the edification of the church. The Lord wants us to reach a new dimension through the mortification of the flesh and abstinence, so that He can use our function. The function of Godchildren must leave ordinary usage to spiritual usage for the edification of the church. Spiritual man is the man who edify Godchildren, and in order to be able to edify Godchildren you got to reach new dimension by sharpening your function through mortification of the flesh, which is suffering, and charisma, which is abstinence and refrain. For the mortification and the charisma kill the nature, and when the nature is dead the spiritual sense take over. The angel of the Lord said, when your function that have developed beyond humanity and natural use and have become spiritual, you become able to see the spiritual reality hidden behind the natural order, so that you can discover yourselves. You become able to look at yourselves through the eyes of the Spirit, and through spiritual vision you discover what you could not see through natural eyes. We got to look at the natural through the spiritual eyes. The angel of the Lord said, when you have reached this stage, when you have changed the usage of your function from ordinary use to spiritual use for edification, your designer will start using you, and then you become an instrument. That way you are no longer regarded as human but as an instrument. Then the Lord will begin to use you so that you can fulfill the reason for which you were designed. When you reach a level where God begin to use you to fulfill the reason for which you were made, you have definitely reached high spirituality, for every design is designed for a purpose. Today God is not using His children because they lack spirituality and their function are still natural. They have failed to go through charisma and mortification and they are carnal. Their faculty is handed to mundanity and they are egocentric. The angel of the Lord told me, high spirituality is so high because you have reached a stage of consecration and abstinence where you become the mouth of God, and God speak through you. This is where spiritual gift and ministry are activated, for your nature is dead and your function are in a new dimension. I came to understand that high spirituality is when you are in ministry, when you serve the brethren, brother and sisters, when you mortify your nature and when you practice abstinence you rise in dimension, and God will begin to use you in ministry and gift. Thanks to this dispensation I came to understand why today we do not have ministry and gift of the Spirit that are authentic. It is because the so-called holder of the ministry and gift are failing to understand that we got to come out of the natural and the ordinary, and we got to become spiritual. You cannot claim to be in the ministry and you are indulging in the desire of the flesh and addiction. This means that spirituality is not there, for high spirituality is a result of mortification and abstinence. This explains why the spiritual level is low in the teaching and ministry and gift. We have not reached spirituality unless we have crucified the flesh through mortification, and we are supposed to deprive the body through abstinence. The angel of the Lord said, when the Almighty begin to use your spiritual function, your humanity become instrument. As a result you become a dispensator of God. Brother, there is a lifestyle that activates spirituality, spiritual gift and ministry. It is thanks to that lifestyle of consecration that we become instrument. The gift and the ministry are not external element, they are internal. They are released through a lifestyle of consecration, dedication and separation. We need a life of mortification and abstinence. The angel of the Lord said, "Whoever has not gone through this process, he still has a crude and raw body." And when God children are crude, the angels of spirituality who a servant would not be able to operate in them, it is imperative for God children to be crushed and to crucify the flesh in order to become sensitive to the spirit world. And the angels say we must become sacred through devoutness, consecration and dedication, in order to enable the Lord to kill our humanity and our corrupt nature. The angel of the Lord made it clear, it is imperative to note that when we come to Christ we are crude and raw, thus our body must be mortified and crucified, otherwise we are not spiritual and we are not rising in the sound of the trumpet. This process of crucifixion of the flesh is painful. I mean we must endure suffering in the body, so that this raw and crude body of ours will be put to death, for the Lord will not choose those who are crude and raw, only those who are crushed in the pain of mortification and abstinence. When we are crude and raw our spiritual function are obsolete and dormant, and we are not yet instrument. We are human. Humanity must die in us so that our function can be used by the Lord. That way we become instrument, for we are crucified. Let us ponder about the word of the angel of the Lord, for he said they have waited for millennium to talk about these things. When we look at the Old Covenant we see the high priest offering animal to the Lord instead of offering themselves, and a whole generation was lost in that practice. This is the reason the change of testament had to intervene. Thus the Apostle Paul wrote, "Therefore I urge you, brothers, on account of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God." People were crude and raw, they were not offering themselves in sacrifice but they were offering animals, and it took time for people to understand that we are the offering and we are the sacrifice that God wants. We must carry the cross to the altar and we must die in the altar. The Bible say, "Yet it was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer, yet we considered him stricken by God, struck down and afflicted. He was crushed for our iniquities,